sueño de amor, un sueño de amor, un sueño de amor, un sueño de amor, un sueño de amor. Estuve enamorado y pensé que era para siempre. Nunca creí que esto pasaría, 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 pasaría.
I was doing my apprenticeship at the time, and I just carried on as if nothing had happened. It was quite bizarre, really. Now that when I look back, I think, oh wow, how did I do that? How did I manage to, from the clinic, just go straight to work and do my job, go home, and just not think about it? And I just completely ignored it. I kept it at the back of my head for I don't know how many years.
To be gay in Latin America is very difficult. In our small community here, some people think it's an illness, others think it's a sin you're committing against God. So everyone's hiding. Not many people tell their family they are gay or anything. Like my father thinks to be a man is to sleep with 100 women, and he tried to take me to the prostitutes and things like that.
Not knowing the real implication of AIDS, I went and got myself tested and found out that I was positive. It was a very horrifying time for me and my lover, because the virus spells death and spells shame and spells a lot of fear and a lot of guilt. There were a lot of issues about being gay that came up with the virus.
I came out around 17, 18. It was pretty easy for me. I suppose I've always been fairly independent and outgoing, and didn't find it too difficult to go out and find a place in the scene. But it was difficult at home though. It was something I just couldn't say anything, talk about anything with my parents, just knowing that they wouldn't accept it.
One of the things that I did immediately, and I thank God that I did that, was to call upon my brothers, because they were studying in Melbourne then. And with Peter, that's my lover, we sat down and have a good chat. I mean, it's like my first coming out, and it was a chance for me to learn how to come out, and I've always come out quite well. So with Ian and Singh, I told them that I was positive. And they were very sad, and it was lovely to see that my family was sad and not just angry or fearful, or they were not feeling any shame for me. And that made me able to cry with them.
I told my brother that I was gay about 10, 11 years ago. It was sort of difficult to keep it away from since I was having a relationship with someone, so I thought I'd tell him, and that was fine. He was fine about it, no problem at all. My sister-in-law was really cool about it too. And that's been really good. Our relationship has always been very close, so it grew even stronger over the years. And then earlier this year, I decided to tell my brother I was positive, and it just sort of came out, and he was fine about that too. He sort of bit of a shock to him naturally, but he said that the main thing, as long as I'm healthy, and he knows that I have been, I've never been sick, so he was fine. And I told my sister-in-law as well, and she was fine, and that sort of lifted an enormous burden off my shoulders. It was just like coming out again as being gay, and made an enormous difference. But again, I couldn't tell my dad. I don't even think about it. It's just not possible.
When I told my friends that I was positive, they were completely against me telling my mother that I was positive. That was the same situation as when I wanted to tell my mum that I was gay. Everyone was saying, no, don't do it, don't do it. And I thought, but I've got to do it. She's my mother and we're really good mates and blah, blah, blah. And then I told her she had a heart attack.
I wish I could tell them to prepare them. Like the doctor told me, I have between 1 and 5 years to live, and during that time I'll be sick and I'll have to go through this all by myself. I've heard stories of other people telling their parents, and sometimes I wish I was like them, but I know they will never accept me, that I'm gay or that I have AIDS.
For religious reasons, I suspect, and lots of misinformation, a young man was basically abandoned by his family, but very well cared for by his partner. Two highly intelligent and delightful men. And there hadn't been really any significant involvement, therefore, on the part of the family. And when he died, his partner finalised details of the funeral with me. We had talked about them probably 12 months before that, because there were a few near misses. We'd almost lost this young man. And I was asked, or perhaps given permission, to tell the family that their son had passed away. And many of them came to the funeral, but were upset probably by their own sense of abandonment, I suspect. But they chose, through that funeral ceremony, to leave the church. To walk out in protest. And they did that when the partner was speaking, and speaking with great emotion and great difficulty. So that was difficult. That was probably the most difficult experience I have had in all of my priesthood of 25 years, but certainly in all of my involvement with HIV and AIDS.
I suppose that's a big difference between migrant parents who are in a time warp and than sort of parents, Anglo parents that are brought up here and know English and read the paper every day and watch a current affair or that sort of thing, and whereas my parents didn't read the paper or watch any news except the normal, the 6 o'clock news. So it just would be too difficult to explain, and you sort of think, well, why bother then? Just forget it and just drop it and not even think about ever telling them.
But she's fine about it now. She cares. She asks questions. I answer them. But because I'm over it, and she's not, she wants more information. She even went to a VAC gathering, the Victorian AIDS Council gathering, to discuss issues of parenting children with HIV, which for an Italian mother, I was actually quite touched that she did that, and she did it without telling me that I actually found out about a week later that she actually did this.
It took me 18 months before I could actually tell my mum and dad that I was HIV positive. I remembered that that day was a very difficult day. Peter was there and he made me say something to my parents, because otherwise I would never say it. And my brothers were in my parents' bedroom waiting for mum, because we know that if she feels threatened or frightened, or if she's going to crumple down, she will immediately resort to her bedroom. So they were waiting there. Surprisingly, it went very well. I said that, Mum and Dad, the reason I'm back here is because I am HIV positive, and I promised my brothers that I'll come back and tell you face to face. And Mum just crumpled down, and we were all drinking whiskey. It is our family drink. And she just gulped it down and she said, "Oh, you have to excuse me. I cannot hold up myself." She just burst out crying. I still get so affected by this. But anyway, after telling them, I was saying, especially my youngest brother is very close to me, and she says that, "Isn't it surprising that there was no remorse? My parents were not angry with me. My parents were not pointing a finger at me and say, 'You did it, prove that you deserve this.' They didn't say that to me at all."
I told my relatives, majority of them by phone, that I was positive. I actually told them because I thought they would be a great support for my mother. That was a big mistake. It was probably one of the biggest mistakes of the whole grand idea that I had. Majority of them, I had a negative response. One woman actually told me, "Why is this happening? How could you do this?" And then she wanted to know if I had sex with a man. And of course I said yes. And she had no idea that I was gay. And she goes, "Oh no, I didn't know you were gay. How horrible."
They know I have cancer and pneumonia, but I could never tell them the truth. I'm just scared. I think they will just stop talking to me. So how can I tell them?
Unlike many of we're from this individualistic community, which is about self, whereas many of the people that I work with are from a community that rely on family, extended family community. And what that community thinks is very important to how they behave. So they don't want to bring shame to their family. That it brings great dishonour, for example, in some communities to find that your child is homosexual. So there's a lot of denial and a lot of pretending. So I'm finding that as a counsellor and as a cross-cultural worker, many of the issues are around not being able to be who you want to be, but instead having to be what the community expects you to be or wants you to be, and as a consequence your family want that of you as well.
We managed to get the organising committee of the Spanish Fiesta to let us present this educational play in the main stage at the Fiesta at the closure of Johnson Street. It was quite a challenge. They were a little bit reluctant because they were worried that a play of that nature would somehow overshadow the festivity or the festivities that they wanted to, the environment that they wanted to create.
La enfermedad te hace pensar acerca de la otra persona. Yo no quiero enfermar a nadie y sentirme culpable. No quiero que otra persona pase lo que yo estoy pasando. Y eso hace cambiar el sentimiento.
Our partner's negative, and he's fine. We've never had a problem. We practiced safe sex from day one, even though he didn't know that I was positive right at the very start. It always takes a while before you sort of get enough guts to tell someone. So when I did tell him, he was fine about it. He knew that he was quite happy that we were doing the right thing, and there was enough love and commitment there that this sort of issue becomes a non-issue.
I actually swore to myself never to get into a relationship again. I've got what I call a fuck buddy. It's someone that I have sex with. We get along quite well. We enjoy each other's company. He's a great conversationist. He's interesting. He's intelligent. He's smart. He's HIV negative, and he couldn't care less if I was positive or not. And of course, that makes me feel good. Maybe, possibly, I'm one of the lucky ones. A lot of HIV negative people would possibly freak.
I was thinking perhaps we could get a group of Asian men and women that are HIV positive to meet on a regular basis so that they could help one another. I mean, we are not great counselors or great healers, but certainly we are going through the same thing. And also, one of the things is that in this group of people, although we are living with the virus, we have experienced losing a lot of our Asian friends and our friends for that matter. So the group is a very small group and very private. We have lots and lots of fun, but one of the most important things is that we exchange our ups and our downs, and most of the time it is very similar.
I joined the Italian and Gay Network before I actually started working at the AIDS Council. It was just a finding that being gay is one issue that you have to deal with, and naturally when you come out you want to find other people of the same sexuality, so you sort of break out into this gay and lesbian community, and you go out to clubs and you do all that sort of stuff. One of the problems is that the majority are Anglo-Saxon, and you just don't. There are times when you just don't feel a part of it because you think, well, I'm gay, I'd like everyone, all these other guys, but I'm Italian as well, and so I just somehow don't fit.
While I don't promote isolation or and appreciate diversity, I think we have to be very careful that when we have these groups developing, it really is about having a space, a safe place to share similarities. But it's also about educating the broader mass about what you're about, and educating them as it's also an acculturation into that. So it's a two-way thing. It's not about having groups to exclude, but it's about having a safe place to become included. And I think that's because there's a lot of opposition to the different groups, because people see it as quite racist or quite the opposite. And in actual fact, it's about working together for that sense of identity, sense of self, and then being confident in going out into a broader community.
So you're sort of stuck in the middle of these two worlds, and I found that with the Italian Gay Network, being able to meet up a whole bunch of other guys who were gay and Italian as well, just made an enormous difference, being able to share my experiences of my culture with other people who had the same sort of experiences and who understood and knew where I was coming from.
within the gay community, there's an incredible amount of discrimination. And I hear it all the time about not being the right image or not being the right type or not having the right body size. And if you also have an ethnic identity in that's also not admired or seen as part of the culture, then that's a double negative in many ways.
She met her first lesbian and she came home and she told me that she met a female one of you, and I didn't really understand what she was talking about. And then she says, you know, a gay woman. And I said, oh, a lesbian. And she goes, oh yeah, and she was so nice, and it's so unfair. And I thought, okay, that's okay. I can understand her saying it's so unfair. And the fact that she actually said she was so nice, I thought, oh wow, that's quite a forward, modern way of thinking, I guess. But she's great. I love my mother now. It's like that out of touch.
What's wonderful is that they're all ages, from many different backgrounds. Our Koori population, they're here, our Koori women and men. And it's really a lovely feeling. I was watching before, and I was watching the Greek guys chatting with the Koori guys then coming over and talking to the Jewish lesbians. And so it was a really nice family feel about it. And I think people have had a really good time.
Been positive for 14 years. I've been very lucky, I suppose. Along the way, I've seen people get sick and die. A couple of close friends and many other acquaintances. It's really hard to go through that, actually, because you always wonder about yourself. Whenever you go to a funeral, you think, you know, you see yourself there, and you're just wondering, you know, when's it your turn? But I suppose I've never really let it worry me. I've always sort of made a conscious decision that from the day I was diagnosed that I wasn't going to worry about it. You have to keep going, and wasn't going to let it have an impact on my life as much as some people allow themselves.
Tal vez quisiera decirles que piensen en que el amor a una persona está bien, pero hay que ser seguros en el sexo. A veces uno comete un error pensando de que el amor va a ser para toda la vida, pero a veces las relaciones se terminan y uno queda con las malas experiencias. En concreto, decirles a la persona que sean seguros en el sexo, que no importa que tanto ames a la otra persona, tienes que usar condoms y hablar, comunicarse con la persona acerca de la relación, especialmente en el sexo.
Very important for my daily life to include the Buddhist teaching. And it's very simple. It's about if you have a chance to live again, I would dedicate my life to helping people, and I would dedicate my life to accepting help with humility and with love. So every day I say that, and that makes life very possible. In fact, peaceful, joyful. Yes. So this is basically it.